Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 17 championship week top 30 running back rankings and tiers. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Today's video is being brought to you guys by DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later. They have a great offer for new users. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 17 top 30 running back rankings and tiers. And hopefully the tiers are happening to your opponent, not you. Let's see the W this week. Let's go. We begin with tier number 1 at the running back position. In my opinion, all three of these guys are must starts on the week. At number 1, we have Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, McCaffrey had a bit of a down game last week as the RB 14 in half PPR. Prior to that, though, a top 5 running back in all 3 of the games prior to that. Currently the RB number 4 on the season, and he has a wet dream matchup up against the Raiders, as they have one of the worst run defenses in all of the NFL. My only worry here is that Big Cock Brock and the San Francisco 49ers offense is able to put up points early and often in this game, and because the Raiders have Jarrett Stidham under center, then we see Christian McCaffrey potentially get yanked out of the game, or they reduce his workload and put in Tyrion Davis-Price and Jordan Mason. Now, even if that is the case, Christian McCaffrey could still have a fantastic first 2 or 3 quarters of the game. That is really my only worry when it comes to McCaffrey. I still think he ends up smashing in this spot, though. At number 2, we have Saquon Barkley of the New York Football Giants going up against the Indianapolis Colts at home in MetLife. Running back number 2 last week up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, RB number 5 on the season. Saquon Barkley has been relatively efficient all year long, averaging 4.4 yards per carry, and his target numbers have been insane over the last 2 weeks, 10 and 8 targets over the last 2 games. I expect him to absolutely torch the Indianapolis Colts defense. The Colts are a disaster of a franchise, a dumpster fire at this point. I think Saquon Barkley takes advantage of that poor defense. At number 3, to close out tier number 1, we have Austin Eckler, Mr. Clean of the LA Chargers going up against the LA Rams. Last week, he had the most amount of carries he's had since week number 11 with 18 for 67 yards, as well as going 4 for 4 in the receiving game like he was at Wendy's for 12 receiving yards, as well as scoring 2 touchdowns in that game, finishing the week as the RB number 4. Eckler is currently the RB number 1 on the season, and I realize that on paper, this is not a wet dream matchup up against the Rams, but ultimately, Austin Eckler is so fucking good, the matchup does not matter at all. I think he should be just fine in this spot. Moving to tier number 2, these guys are also must starts. There's just a little bit of a fall off from tier number 1 to tier number 2. Headlining tier number 2, we got James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Atlanta Falcons defense in Atlanta. Another matchup where the Arizona Cardinals, realistically, James Conner himself, the Cardinals are a bit of a disaster as well, right? They're starting David fucking Blau, but going up against the Atlanta Falcons defense, even if the Arizona Cardinals offense comes out limp dick, I still really do believe that James Conner could sauce up the Falcons defense. RB number 5, 12 and 5 over the last 3 games. The Falcons have one of the worst run defenses in all of the NFL. And again, even with David Blau under center, with how good James Conner has been, and I really do think Blau looks to dump the ball off a bunch to James Conner, I think he has top 5 upside this week, and that's why I've got him ranked as my RB number 4. Closing out the top 5 in tier number 2, we got Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Another excellent wet dream matchup for Dalvin Cook. Now, this guy has been hit or miss all season. Over his last 5 games, he's been RB 27, 2, 26, 10, and 36 and half PPR. Currently the RB number 8 on the season. The Vikings have one of the best offenses, in my opinion, in the NFL. Now, they are a team that in the past was very run heavy, but under Kevin O'Connell, they are much more likely to throw the rock a bunch. Up against the Packers, this game reeks. You can smell right through the screen of an incredibly high-scoring tit-for-tat matchup where Dalvin Cook could find the end zone multiple times. He is the most risky running back inside the top 5, but we all know just how good Dalvin Cook can be. Now we move to tier number 3, where things start to really open up at number 6. All of these guys, all 6 of these players, I really like, but there's a lot more kind of it's a little bit more scary to play these guys. Now, again, you're still going to fucking play them, right? They're top 12 running backs. But when I put them in my lineup, I'm not like, yes, I got James Conner or Dalvin Cook, Eckler, Saquon, or Christian McCaffrey. It's more of like, all right, I got to play Travis Etienne. He's going up against the garbage Houston Texans defense. This should be a smash spot. But I know deep down in the back of my head that Travis Etienne's been in a little bit of a slump recently. Now, he's kind of escaped the slump a little bit. He's like a groundhog, kind of getting the tip out a little bit here. RB 15 and 22 over the last 2 games. Now, this is his best matchup by far as of recently. The Texans are a bottom of the barrel run defense. We could see Travis Etienne Jr. run a train in this spot. It's Ass Etienne season. I like Travis Etienne a ton, but the fact is, over the last 5 games, RB 15, 22, 44, 39, and 83, he hasn't necessarily been the definition of consistency. At number 7, we have Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills in my favorite game of the week on Monday Night Football. RB number 11 last week up against a stout New England Patriots defense. Now, I know technically if you're reading the stats, the Buffalo Bills have one of the best run defenses in the NFL in terms of yards per game allowed, and the reason why that is the case is because the Buffalo Bills offense is so fucking good that they can just pipe teams early on, and then later on in the game, the other team, when they're getting the shit beat out of them, they can't run the ball. They have to throw. They fade away from the run, and that makes the Bills have a great run defense. Now, I'm not saying that the Bills' run defense is dog shit and that Joe Mixon is 100% going to run a fucking train on them. I'm not going to say that. But what I will tell you is that I think their defense is a little worse against the run than most people give them the credit for. Mixon's a guy you're playing every week with confidence. He's been a little all around this season. We've seen games where he's the RB1. We've seen games where he finishes outside of the top 40. But ultimately here, this game reeks of points. Joe Mixon has to have a high ranking. He has also seen a solid increase in targets as of recently, 9 targets and 6 targets over the last 2 games. I think he looks to get involved in the receiving game as well here. Up against the Bills, I like Joe Mixon a ton. At number 8, we have Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots going up against the Miami Dolphins at home in Foxborough. Important to note that Ramondre Stevenson is listed as questionable with an ankle injury for this game on Sunday. RB 62 last week. The week prior to that, RB4 up against the Raiders. The Dolphins have one of the better run defenses, in my opinion, in the NFL, but there's a big difference. I talk about this a lot in all the videos. Night and day as a Dolphins fan. At home, the Dolphins defense is unstoppable. Away, the Dolphins defense is soft as baby shit, so this game is in Foxborough. I think Ramondre Stevenson has a lot of upside here. I am a little bit worried, though, because Bill Belichick normally doesn't deal with a lot of bullshit. Like, normally, if a running back starts stinking it up, like doing certain things, like, you know, handing the ball to Jacoby Myers so Jacoby Myers can launch it 5,000 yards back so that Mac Jones could get stiff-armed, right? That typically gets a running back benched in the Belichick system, but maybe Bill's gotten a little soft over the years. I still like Stevenson, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not as confident as I was a couple weeks ago. At number 9, we got Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Niners. The Niners have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, and Jarrett Stidham is going to be under center. The reason why I still am somewhat confident in Josh Jacobs is because I think Stidham's just going to end up dumping the ball off to this guy roughly 7,000 times, and I think just getting potentially 8 targets, now I'm not saying he's going to get 8 targets, I'd say he's going to get at least 4 targets in this game, and with how good Jacobs has played all year, he should be fine. But if I'm being honest with you, again, tier number 3 is where there's a lot of question marks circling around. Not as confident. So I'm a little bit worried about Josh Jacobs. At number 10, we have Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia without Jordan Davis, who makes the run defense great. They do not have him. RB8 last week. And let's be honest here. Going into last week, Alvin Kamara running back 25, 45, 51 over the last 3 games before that. I had no confidence in him, and I knew the matchup was great against the Browns. The Browns defense sucks donkey hog against the run, but I could not get behind Alvin Kamara with supreme confidence. And he has a great game, RB number 8, and I hope he is able to end the season on the high road, right? He ends the season strong because I was a big Alvin Kamara guy in the offseason. He hasn't been as efficient this year, just 3.9 yards per carry. I still think he's a great player. I still think he can get it done against the Eagles. The problem is the Saints offense is just bad. And number 11 to close out tier number 3, we got my guy 9-inch Nicholas Chubb of the Cleveland Browns going up against the Washington Commanders in Washington. But before we break down Nick Chubb as well as the rest of the running backs inside the top 30 of today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, if you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook and click on the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment, and you bet $5 on any sport pregame money line, you'll receive $150 in free bets if your bet wins. Now, notice how I said if your bet wins. So since your bet has to win, I suggest that you go with a sport that has the biggest favorites. And the biggest favorites, the sport that has the biggest favorites, is college basketball. So you're going to navigate, I'm showing on the screen right now, top left of the screen, click on college basketball on DraftKings after you sign up, and then you are just going to find the biggest favorite of the day, bet $5 on them, and you receive $150 in free bets if they win. It really is that simple. And make sure you guys use your free bets, because once your bet settles, you'll have 7 days afterwards to use your free bets. Make sure you take advantage of this offer right now before it disappears. Again, bet $5 on a sport pregame money line, win $150 in free bets if your bet wins. So Nick Chubb with Deshaun Watson's been bad. RB 23, 32, 29, and 32. The team has not been moving the ball very effectively, but Chubb's still getting usage. 24, 21, 14, and 17 carries over the last 4 games. Something's got to change. Now, the Commanders' defense is not really soft as baby shit. They're also not Viagra rock hard, right? They're just a pretty mid defense against the run. I think Nick Chubb can get it done here, but let's be honest here again. This is a tier full of players that I really like, but I can't really bang the drum aggressively for, because there's a lot of question marks going on around him. Now we move to tier number 4 at the running back position, beginning at number 12 with Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Jets. The Jets' pass defense, amazing. The run defense, not top tier, but also not complete and utter dog shit. RB 20 last week up against the Chiefs. I think he should be able to finish inside the top 15 at the running back position. He's been really reliable all year long, and despite the fact that he hasn't played in every game, it wasn't the starter in every game, he's the RB 20 on the season. He's a guy that's relatively safe game in and game out and has the upside to be the RB number 1. So that's got to give him a top 12 ranking. At number 13, we have Jerick McKinnon of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Denver Broncos. Last time these two teams played, the motherfucker was the RB number 1, having 6 carries for 22 yards, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 29 fantasy points in half PPR. And then after that, against Houston, he was the RB 1 again. Bit of a down game last week against Seattle, RB number 21. Can you do something for me? Again, the Broncos defense is known for being incredible against the pass. Against the run, they're pretty dog shit. So again, while McKinnon had a bit of a snoozer last week and people might be a little nervous, pussyfooting around playing Jerick McKinnon, I love him this week. At number 14, we got Aaron Jones, the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings pass defense, dog shit. The run defense, pretty average. Aaron Jones is dealing with the fact that A.J. Dillon is on fire. Jones was on the injury report with a knee and ankle injury, but he's off of the injury report as of Friday. I do think that Aaron Jones is still a great player. I honestly think when push comes to shove, I would rather have Aaron Jones over A.J. Dillon touting the rock, but the team still wants to heavily use A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones only had 6 carries up against the Dolphins. He was banged up in that game, though. At the end of the day, the upside is very high for Aaron Jones, so I'm going to continue to kind of bang the drum for him, but I'm going to be honest with you, even though he's the RB9 on the season, I know deep down that there's a chance that A.J. Dillon easily outscores him. At number 15, we have Miles Sanders of the Eagles going up against the Saints, RB 38 and 67 over the last 2 games. Miles Sanders is one of those running backs that is really hit or miss. He's either going to score you like 5 fantasy points or he's going to go for 18 plus. That's really been kind of the MO of his season. Very hit or miss. Last 2 weeks, straight misses. 6 points and 1 point, week 16 and 15 against Dallas and Chicago. But the Saints matchup's pretty good. Don't think Jalen Hurts is going to play. I think kind of having that idea that Hurts is going to play was crazy, even though Hurts was practicing. Now, maybe miraculously, the motherfucker starts on Sunday, but I doubt it. I think even with Gardner Minshew, though, we could see a really solid game out of Miles Sanders. He had his 2nd highest carry total on the season. with 21 last week against Dallas. I think he can get it done against the Saints again. Very hit or miss, but a really talented player. At number 16, we have Cam Akers of the LA Rams going up against the LA Chargers. RB1, 23, 23, and 7 over the last 4 games. Now, Cam Akers is probably the funniest player to be talking about at this point in the season because through the beginning of the season, all the way until week number 13, this guy was dead to fantasy owners. RB 76, 32, 27, 69. Very nice. I like. 62, 69 again. Wink, wink. 51, 34, 53. You drafted him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. He bent you over a table and sodomized your asshole. But over the last 4 weeks, he's been on fire. Chargers defense, bottom of the barrel against the run. He plays the Chargers defense this week. So again, I don't want to get too high on Cam Akers because he really hasn't been great this season, but when a player is on fire, NBA Jam style, when they got the game breaker activated like they're playing NFL Street, I'm going to ride the hot streak. Again, I don't think Cam Akers is all that amazing, but if he's going to keep playing this good, I'm going to keep riding the train, and it's pretty clear he is the RB1 on the team. At number 17, we got, and Baker's looking pretty good, which boosts him a little bit as well. At number 17, we got David Montgomery of the Bears going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Now, going into last week, the Lions defense looked like they were reformed. Like, holy shit, the Lions run defense is amazing. A1 like the steak sauce. And then last week, they got hit with the Eiffel Tower by Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. Now, Montgomery now has Khalil Herbert, the pervert, back, so that is a little bit worrisome because Herbert was cutting into his production. Dave Montgomery is really talented, though, and prior to those last couple of games, except for the game against the Panthers, the Lions defense early on the season was not good against the run. I think they're kind of back on that same bullshit, and I think Montgomery should have a very decent game. But again, the back of my head, I'm touching the front of my head, but in the back of my head, I'm still a little bit worried about Khalil Herbert returning. At number 18 to close out tier number 4, we got Tyler Algier of the Arizona Cardinals. This guy has been outstanding over the last 4 games. Now, I know week 12, week 13, RB 45 and 42 on paper, not great, but he has been running effectively in all of those games, averaging 4.9 yards per carry, RB 7 and 12 over the last 2 games. The Cardinals defense, absolute garbage up against the run. Terrible like the towels in Pittsburgh, and ultimately this reeks of a great spot out of Algier. I wanted to rank him even higher. Expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros got him at RB 21. I got him as RB 18. I love Algier this week. Now moving to tier number 5, we begin with RB number 19, B-Rob of the Commanders going up against the Cleveland Browns. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. RB 37 and 26 over the last 2 games, though it is important to note that Antonio Gibson is going to be missing in this game. The Cleveland Browns defense, like I stated a little bit earlier with Alvin Kamara, is dog shit up against the run. Brian Robinson's going to whip out his big hat in celebration here because I think this might be his biggest game over the last 2 weeks, because last 2 weeks have been bad. RB 37 and 26. Think he could easily be a top 15, 14-ish back here. I don't love him, so he's RB 19, but if you had him ranked slightly higher, I wouldn't really have some crazy argument with you. At number 20, we got Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers, RB 17, 14, and 15 over the last 3 games. Now, it's a little too late at this point because up until recently, the guy was really bad to start off the season going into the bye week. The first 8 weeks, RB 26, 13, 20, 39, 48, 18, 28, 31. That simply wasn't cutting it, and if you drafted him inside of the first round, he was definitely a bust. He's currently RB 16 on the season despite playing in every single game outside the game where they had a bye week, but obviously no one can play during their bye week unless they get traded. And then maybe some players, I forgot who it was, like a year or 2 ago, played every single game because they didn't have a bye week because they were traded. Again, I love Najee Harris, the player. The situation in Pittsburgh's kind of gross, the offensive line. I thought going into the year, there's no way this offensive line that was a certified fucking turnstile last season could be worse. And it's not much better. Even if it's slightly better, it's by a little bit. It's not marginally better. It's just an inkling better. I like Najee Harris, the player. I think he's starting to try to run motherfuckers over like he used to. He had 9 targets last week. Ravens defense getting a little bit better, But this is a game where I think Najee Harris could flourish on Sunday Night Football. At number 21, we got A.J. Dillon, RB 19, 9, 4, and 12 over his last 4 games. Aaron Jones is going to be playing, and if he wasn't going to be playing, which obviously is some alternate fucking reality at this point, A.J. Dillon was going to be ranked inside the top 12 at the running back position. Again, the Vikings defense pretty average against the run. They're dog shit, though, against the pass. Dillon's been getting a decent amount of targets recently. Nothing special, though. Probably going to see around 3 or 4 targets in this spot. He scored a touchdown in all of the last 4 games and scored 2 touchdowns in week 15. I like Dillon a ton. Again, I didn't really see a way to rank him much higher than this because Aaron Jones is still going to get usage, right? It's not like Aaron Jones going to bye-bye disappear. RB21, though, seems pretty reasonable at RB number 22, closing out tier number 5. We got Uncle Lenny Fournette going up against the Carolina Panthers. Leonard Fournette is a guy that I really liked going into this season. Started off pretty decently. Rachaad White kind of took over, and now it's back to Leonard Fournette. The reason why I don't have him ranked higher, despite the fact that he was RB6 last week and the Panthers defense really isn't the greatest against the run, is just because I feel like deep down we all know that Rachaad White's better than Leonard Fournette, but we just have to rely on the fact that the team's going to continue, Todd Bowles is going to continue to roll out Lenny as the guy. Because again, I really do think Rachaad White's better. Could he finish inside the top 12 this week? Definitely. And he's RB13 on the season, and maybe that seems a little crazy to have him ranked this far back with how good he looked against Arizona. But let's be honest here. Let's call a spade a fucking spade. We all know they're going to keep using Rachaad White. It's not like Leonard Fournette's just magically now going to be a workhorse running back. So that is really what concerns me at the end of the day. Now I move to tier number 6 at the running back position. At number 23, we got Mr. J.K. Dobbins. Just kidding. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. RB 36, 18, and 9 over his last 3 games since returning from injury. The Steelers defense is pretty decent against the run. J.K. Dobbins clearly banged up still. Very evident when he cuts. It's not that same motion that we're used to. Now, he doesn't necessarily look like he's out of place on an NFL field because there's some running backs that'll get touches that Dobbins even looks more effective at moving his legs than them in terms of cuts. But again, this isn't the J.K. Dobbins that we've been used to from the past, but it isn't like a complete shell of himself where I couldn't see him having a good game. The fact that he's banged up, though, kind of leaves him into a scenario where I can't rank him much higher than RB23. The highest I'd go is into the last tier, in tier number 5. I think he's a fine play this week, but again, nothing to write home about. At number 24, we got DeAndre Swift of the Lions going up against the Bears. RB 52, 30, and 33 over the last 3 games. DeAndre Swift, in my opinion, is literally one of the best running backs in the NFL, just not getting usage. Amazing wet dream matchup against the Bears. The Bears defense is terrible against the run. I was a big DeAndre Swift guy, banging the drum, basically giving this guy the metaphorical dick suck gawk gawk 9,000 special in the offseason. I loved him. Jamal Williams has been vulturing touchdowns, but at the end of the day, DeAndre Swift, I think next year is going to be a huge value in fantasy. But maybe he's just been playing hurt. Dan Campbell seems to hate him. And maybe he's a swing and a miss next year because Dan Campbell just hates his guts or something. But I really believe in the talent with DeAndre Swift. It's just the situation right now. It's not the best. At number 25, we got Pacheco, Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs going up against the Broncos. Pacheco hasn't really lost his role with the team to Jerick McKinnon. It's just that Jerick McKinnon catches so many balls every single game. So Pacheco's kind of just the in-between the tackles guy. 14, 15, 13 carries over the last 3 games. He's on the Chiefs, so he can score points. Against the Broncos last time, he was RB19, so he could certainly outscore RB25, but is he going to crack the top 10, top 12 with how good Jerick McKinnon has looked? I really would bet against that. At number 26, to close out tier number 6, we got Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Bengals in Cincinnati. RB7 last week, been pretty hit or miss as of recently. I think ranking him anywhere outside of the top 28-ish would be a little bit egregious, though. The Bengals defense pretty decent against the run. They are projecting that there might be a little bit of rain, a little bit of wetness out there in the game, which would lead to the Buffalo Bills running more. But, deep down, I think Singletary is better than James Cook, but we all still kind of have to come to the realization that James Cook's there. And the team could look to use James Cook more. I still like Singletary, but if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably going to end up not playing too well this week if I'm keeping it a buck with you. Now moving to tier number 7. These are kind of the guys where it's like, shit, if you have to play them, you know, it's not the worst. But if you have to play these guys in your championship, if your wide receiver core isn't locked and loaded and your RB1 isn't some fucking stud that was in tier 1 or tier number 2, I don't love your chances necessarily. But hey, you know, anything can happen in fantasy. These guys could have a great game. But again, I just wouldn't have them ranked all that highly. Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight, 2 down games, 2 down nights for him, RB 66 and 58. But that was with Zach Wilson under center when the Magic Mike Man himself was under center, RB 13, 13, and 24. So I certainly think Zonovan Knight has it in him to explode here up against a pretty bad Seattle run defense. Especially in terms of fantasy running backs. This is a really good matchup for Zonovan Knight. Again, though, they're kind of not as in as they were. Like the last 2 weeks, they kind of pulled out on Zonovan Knight. Will they look to go back with Mike White under center? I hope so. But these last 2 weeks kind of put some negativity into my head about him. At number 28, we got D'Onta Foreman, who's coming off of a phenomenal performance up against the Detroit Lions. 21 carries, 165 yards and a tug, 23 fantasy points, RB number 3. Going up against the Bucs this week, pretty middle of the road up against the run. They still use Chuba Hubbard a lot. I don't really think they're gonna butt fuck the Lions, butt fuck the Bucs like they just did to the Lions. So again, I like D'Onta Foreman, but he's really clearly in a split share. At number 29, we got Raheem the Dream Mostert. The Dolphins need to commit to the run. With Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Horsecock under center, Teddy Three Legs, they need to run the ball. Run the ball, Mike McDaniel. They're not going to, though. I know they're not going to. I'm a Dolphins fan. I watch it. I watch the games. He's so effective against the Bills, and then they look to go away from the run. Without Tua, they need to run. With Tua, they need to run too. I don't get it. Jeff Wilson's back. Kind of throws a wrench into the situation. I still like Mostert more than Wilson. At the end of the day, though, like let's be honest here. I don't really like Raheem Mostert this week. Like you can almost put Mostert and Williams in another tier compared to the other guys, but I still kind of see them all as these are all guys that I still think they have a lot of upside because I think all 4 of these guys are really talented. But again, the matchup gets me for Raheem, even though they're a little bit banged up. And the fact is, McDaniel. Mike, pal, we need to run the rock. At number 30, we got Jamal with 2 A's Williams of the Lions. Been in a slump over the last 3 games, but we all know deep down this motherfucker could score 4 touchdowns in any given game. That's egregious. 3 touchdowns in any given game. He scored 2 touchdowns, 1, 2, 3, 4 times on season. Scored 3 touchdowns once, so he's got it in him. The Bears suck ass against the run. I love Jamal Williams, but his recent production will tell you that you probably should stay away. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious Fantasy or Notorious FNTSY. Fantasy's too long for fucking Twitter. Make sure you guys check out our sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Sportsbook. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great guys' day. And as always, good.